Hello there, I'm Carroll.
And I'm Monika Muranyi.
We've got a story about how all of these Healing Wednesdays actually came about. It's quite a story.
Yes, and we recorded it during our live stream event that we gave at Vancouver, and it was so good that we really wanted to share it with you.
So here it is. Enjoy. I'm sitting here with Monika, and you'll notice that I'm wearing something here, and I'm going to explain this, and Monika's going to help me. And it's about a story, and we would like to tell you something we really haven't verbalized in this way at all until now. And it's a story about what took place, and I think that the thing that is so remarkable is that what took place outside of anything that we had expected, and it affects everybody in the Kryon team. It affects me, and to some degree it affects you if you are a Kryon follower or you are one who has followed the channels. And it's a real redirect, I think, in the energy of Kryon. Now, this is going to lead you into how the Circle of 12 was actually developed, what took place, and all that is surrounding it in detail. We've got to start with when you were in Denmark.
This is exciting, I have to say. When I was in Denmark, still trying to make my way back to the US, back to Lee, I was like you in the audience, tuning in right now. Every weekend I was on the live streams of these events, and I was so hooked into the messages from Kryon. And it was at the end of July, Kryon gave a series of 4 channels, and it was all on the subjects on healing. That is when Kryon described the 4 attributes of healing. The first attribute is chemistry. The second one is inheritance. The third is the Akashic template. And then Kryon said, and the 4th attribute of healing is consciousness. And they all have interrelationships with one another. But the 4th one, consciousness, is the driver of all the others. Consciousness would change your chemistry. Consciousness would change your inheritance. And consciousness would change your Akashic template. Then in the last channel that Kryon gave, there was some very strong direction from Kryon to Lee. And it included messages and hints that Lee had been given over the years on where he was to take the Kryon work. And it was almost like Lee was in a fog and missed all the signposts that were saying, go here, go here, go here. And one of those signposts was the initiation by a Carroll shaman when we were in Peru. But before we go to that, Lee, I want to just discuss with you, because we were on the phone right after Kryon gave you that new assignment and new direction. And it was almost like we were speechless.
Well, even before that, let's just go back a bit. You know, those 4 attributes of healing, even those are very different. Even as you state them, and I'm trying to remember now when you said chemistry and inheritance and all that, that's not what you'd expect. And so even those started to be different. Because Kryon has talked about the healing of the joy and all of these and an inner child, and these were different.
Yes,
and so,
very different.
And this was a weekend like this one. So we had 2 full days. I'll just admit to you right now, and we're talking about it, this is an older paradigm. We are bringing you the streaming today as an emulation of having been to Vancouver and what we would do. But we would normally not stream for 7 hours. This is not the way streaming is supposed to work. So this is a long day, and we realize, and you're at the end of it, most of our streamings are going to go to a much smaller day, including the Circle of 12 that we're going to do. But so here we are, and the city was Raleigh. So figure for a moment, instead of Vancouver, we're streaming for Raleigh, North Carolina. And we started in the channels in the first day, and Kryon says there's going to be 4 channels. Now that's a little unusual because he normally doesn't say there's going to be 4 and count them. Normally there may be 2 because you can have 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, but now he's giving 4. I knew something was up at that point, but then the input, the actual subject matter that I heard Kryon given, I knew we were coming up to something special.
Yes. Yeah.
So by the time we get to number 4, that's what you're talking about.
Yes, indeed, where you are really given, here is what you are to do.
Yeah. I have to explain to all of those who are listening now something about myself, and that is that I am resistant to change.
Absolutely. I can verify this, folks.
And the change that I'm most resistant to would be the change in my work. For 31 years, I've been doing a certain thing in a certain way. And I am so familiar with the energy of Kryon. I mean, it's just, what can I say?
And it's comfortable, isn't it?
It is comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I know absolutely that if I had heard these instructions from Kryon outside of a live channel to a lot of people, I might have just pocketed it. So Kryon talks to me. I mean, I get directions from Kryon all the time. Mostly it's in the shower, but it's very personal. And it's not come through visions or dreams. It's really in the shower. And it comes through intuition, of course. And I have done many things from those times when Kryon says, well, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, or look at this. And it comes in intuitive flashes. And if it had come in that direction, I would have simply not done it, or maybe talked about it, but there would have been so resistance because of what he said. But when he did this live for the Raleigh audience streaming, everybody heard it. So
You can't back out.
You can't back out.
No.
So now in retrospect, I laugh at that whole thing. And I laugh at also the master psychologist that Kryon is, knowing there was no way I could deny it or back out. And what he said is what we're going to talk about next. And she previewed a little bit of it. And I have to tell you, from my position, I remember I'm not a trance channel that goes out of my body, like Marilyn Harper and so many others. There's so many different ways of channeling.
Yeah.
What I am is a channel with Kryon from the very beginning. I listen. I know what is being channeled. That's just, I would say it came from me being at the very front. I said to Kryon, I said, I don't want to be one of those crazy channels that go out of their body and you don't know what I'm doing, and so I become a puppet or something like that. This was me just being fearful, I think, in the very beginning, not knowing really about channeling. But I was so honored by Spirit with this, and that's when Spirit said, there's no problem, you can listen to every word, but there'll be a price. And the price to pay, if you want to say, is that you stay in the chair, you can't stand up, or you'll fall over, and that's happened, and you can't walk around the room with your eyes open like Adirondha does. And so I am a conscious channel. You have to know that. So here we are in Raleigh, and he begins to tell what has happened, and he starts pegging how I have missed stuff. I didn't like that. I didn't like, that was not my most fun day in channeling. When he starts saying, well, Lee, you should have known that this was coming. You should have gotten this, and you should have gotten that. And he started indicating, you realize that you've been doing it long enough for an indigenous to say you're an elder. Now that was, it's a very important thing.
Absolutely.
Because he always goes back to the indigenous.
Yes.
And then it says your age also is old enough for you to be an elder, an indigenous. So you have two things. You have experience and age in order to have, I would say, an authority to do this.
Yeah.
Then he started talking about, he says, you missed it. You should have known when you went to Peru.
Yes. So in Peru, we went there for a shamanic journey with a shaman by the name of Nicholas Picard. And he took us on the shamanic journey, but the very first meeting that we went to with our group was completely unexpected because they performed an initiation ceremony for Lee. Now, we had privately spent time with Nicholas prior to this, and I think it was the shaman's way of gauging and assessing Lee and his knowledge and the work that he was doing. Because then when they gave the initiation ceremony, we were a little unsure of what it all meant. But later on, when we specifically asked what happened, what was all that about?
Well, let's talk about what he did.
Yeah.
And what it felt like.
And how did it feel like? So you can see now that Lee is actually wearing a shawl around him, and this signifies the initiation. It's a priesthood level within Andean cosmovision. And the bag that Lee has is what the shamans use for things like their cocoa leaves. I have a mini version.
I may actually have
Mine's
cocoa
my
leaves still in here.
Shaman in training,
Yeah,
yes.
right, yeah.
So this was given to Lee in a profound ceremony when the Andean priests would all come and they would blow through the top of his head. And what did that feel like?
I
for
only
you?
was saying, oh my God, he's messing up my hair. I was so out of it. I have been through these ceremonies before. I mean, we're going to do a whole video one day on the ceremony in Kazakhstan where they made me an elder. I mean, it happened there too, but they're a little different. So I thought it was just another ceremony. We even did one in Chile when they blew smoke up my nose. Or
Well, it was
something like that.
tobacco.
Tobacco.
Yeah, it wasn't
well,
smoke.
Okay, it was all right, different. Anyway, so I've been through stuff. I thought it was simply protocol.
Yeah.
Because I was the leader of the group, and I thought it was protocol. It wasn't. So what it was like was me sitting there. Here's some coca leaves to chew on, which was new. I hadn't really done that before, even though I'd been to Peru a number of times. And I thought this was going to be another despacho ceremony. We're going to do this and that. He sits me down in a chair. That was different because I didn't expect that. And it was in front of the group, and it was in front of 3 other priests
Yes.
from his tribe. And he proceeded to do a lot of things, including, blow through the top of my head
Yeah.
and all of these things that he was doing. Now, I had not seen that before in despacho. So I knew there was something else, but just the same. And then I think there was a time when I had to say something, or he asked me my name or something to speak it out loud.
Yeah.
But I was completely and totally oblivious to what was going on, and all the way through Peru.
Yeah. But I think at a cellular level, I watched you and I saw
Yeah.
you, and there was
I
a
was
recognition of a
uncomfortable.
profundity at
Yeah.
some level, though.
I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that now I know why. Because there was energy being poured through
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so what Nicholas said was that this was a recognition of a certain level of consciousness within Andean cosmovision. And that what it meant is that Lee was being recognized as a guardian of the planet Earth. And it was in this capacity as the guardian of the planet Earth that he's recognized as being one to negotiate with certain beings and other planets in the name of Earth, the planet, and I'm going to add humanity. And so this really is what his role is in channeling Kryon. This fits into the Andean cosmovision, where he is a guardian of the Earth and negotiating with other beings and planets in the name of humanity. Kryon came in for the shift, and this is where Kryon said, now that you're through the shift, here is what we're really doing. Isn't that
What month was that? When did we go? Was that the end of the
to
year?
Peru?
Yeah.
That was November last year.
November last
November
year.
of 2019.
Right. Just a couple of months, actually, before we went to Iceland and all this started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's turn the page.
All right, turning a page.
We had the healing premiere
Well, let's look at this.
just a while ago.
We planned, first of all, Kryon says you're changing direction from loving information for the planet and the shift, which has happened
Yes.
8 years ago, and we're moving now toward giving energy. And this, I didn't know what that meant. And he says, specifically, you're going to guide people to a new place where they're going to be able to heal.
Yes.
Now, I've never thought of myself in that capacity, ever.
But Kryon also said, don't mistake, Lee, you are not a healer.
Correct.
You are opening a portal of healing energy, which you have already been doing
Yeah.
for the last 30 years.
So that led us into, okay, what are we going to do? And that is when Kryon started to give information, and we decided to do a premiere of the Circle of 12, which he identified in that channel. You're
Yes.
going to do a Circle of 12, and you're going, I don't know what that channel he talked about, Wednesdays or not?
Well, there were some channels given at Unity Village
Yeah.
in Kansas City, Missouri, which there were 2 channels in that series of 4 about the Healing Circle of 12 explained.
Uh-huh.
And
So-
it was in that we were kind of told, because I remember specifically that the Healing Circle of 12 is a metaphor and it represents something. So then I am waiting for Kryon to tell us what that something is that it represents. We never got told because it was kind of being withheld until we actually
Well,
did the healing premiere.
And I think I biffed a little bit because I think I even told the people there was going to be 12 masters. I mean, I didn't know, but isn't that where you'd go with this?
Isn't that where your logical brain takes you when
Yeah.
Kryon starts saying there's the healing circle of 12? You automatically put yourself, and there was also, you think it's 12 masters, but you're going to be sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
That was the cryptic message.
That was it.
There's 12 masters, but you think, oh, I can't come. How linear of you.
Yeah.
There's 12
And
masters.
it wasn't that at all. It didn't.
It was not that
come
at
close
all.
to that. So you have to put yourself in our shoes too. Is that we didn't know what was going to happen. This is not something we plan out, but we decided that we would have a premiere and we would let Kryon do it. And it would be before we would start these meetings, which we'll tell you about we're going to be. And we did the premiere, I think it was last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we put out the word that we're going to have the Circle of 12 premiere. And it was like opening the floodgates. I had never experienced that kind of interest in anything we'd ever done to this point. By the time we were ready to present and stream the premiere, we had over 3,300 people signed up and ready to go.
Yeah.
We knew at that point in time that Kryon's direction was for the time. It was just absolutely correct.
And look at the time.
Yes.
So many are needing healing, and healing can be in so many different layers. It's healing of fear, healing of your emotions, your past, betrayal. Kryon mentioned that a couple of times. Healing
Very much so.
who has betrayed you.
Yeah.
So there's many layers of healing, and this really is needed. And then Kryon gave instructions. You will do this every week. And
he said 25% of these meetings must be free. So we have the specter. First of all I can think of is the logistics. We're going to have to do 4 meetings a month. One of them is going to be free.
Yeah.
We're going to have speakers for every single one of them. And Kryon said, do them for a year. It's just 50 meetings. I mean, wow. So you can see where my mind is going immediately. And I knew this was not going to be a subtle direction.
I know. And we did talk about it. And immediately I said, well, Lee, Kryon has always been benevolent energy.
Yes, always.
And immediately you said yes and relaxed.
You're right.
Yeah.
I've never been led inappropriately by Kryon to anything.
But it is pushed you out of your comfort zone.
It did. It did. And it took me a while to relax with it, but I did. So what we are facing then is, first of all, the premiere was great, and it explained it. The circle of 12 becomes sitting in a circle of, this is very difficult to understand, the base 12, which I talked about and I have talked about many times, is the structure of the universe, but it's the formula of consciousness is 12. Hard to explain.
I know, that was the metaphor. That's the circle of 12 represents the formula of consciousness. Who would have thought?
And when
that's what it represents.
When I have queried what is the formula of consciousness, even in the shower, subsequently, and I haven't told you this, subsequently even to the premiere after that, and say, how am I going to explain this? And Kryon says, you don't have to explain anything anymore, Lee. He says, just let them come and sit in it and they'll know. So the Healing of 12 started to premiere. What's going to happen from now on is we have, starting September 2, we have this, the first meeting. It's going to be free. And the way it's structured is going to be in a subscription base. If you want all 4 meetings, I think it's $33 a month.
Yes.
Which, I mean, if you look at that, that's like $11 a meeting. You can't even go to a show for that.
I guess it's probably,
Yeah.
I don't know, same as a gym membership, but
There's whatever.
who uses the gym when they sign up? Not many.
And Kryon says that's in order to fund it.
Yes.
So that you can, the studio time, the technicians, for all you're going to do, because you're going to give one away every single month.
Yeah.
It's going to be the first Wednesday will be free. And the free is going to be at 8:30. The ones, the subscribers, will be at 6. So if you're thinking about attending it for free, it'll be at 8:30, and the subscriber is going to be 6 p.m. on every single Wednesday.
Yeah, and then the subscribers will get the other 3 Wednesdays of the month. And back to what you said about how will I explain this to people, Kryon, and Kryon says, you don't.
Yeah.
You take them in and they will feel it. And the metaphor, I just want to remind you of what Kryon gave, was how do you explain sight to a blind person?
That's what he said in the premiere.
And Kryon said, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You give them sight.
You give them sight.
You give them sight because it's not explainable. And this is where Kryon, it's a formula of consciousness. How do you explain it? Just take them into it and let them experience it.
And that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I expect the first one to be what I would call a stem winder, which means a good program. And that will be the first that we do. And again, we're really not aware of what's coming fully. And this is, Kryon gave an indication that the beginning meetings are just the beginning meetings, and that they will graduate and become more profound. And especially for those who have signed on, they will realize that it's not just the same meditation every time, although there'll be structure, and Kryon is very clear with that they're going to graduate into other things, and the energy will shift and change as well.
Yes. I think one of the other things that I really loved is Kryon in the Healing Premiere, for the first time, asked those listening before they would enter anything, is they have to mean it. They have to really give intent. Are you just looking, or is this something you really want?
And what he said by that is, if you want this to work for you,
yes,
says, I mean, you can come and watch, but if you really want it to work, you have to be serious about it. He uses the word cognize a lot, which means just to really try to make it something that you believe very, very fully that it's going to work.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's our explanation of all this, and I want to thank you guys for listening to this and being interested in it and all of that before anything else happens. So thanks so much for that.
Yeah, we hope everyone got value from this. It was a very spur of the moment thing to share with you all, but it's so current that we felt we had to share.
Thanks.